Okay, hello, welcome back. So this is class 1, lab 1. We're going to continue now, just chatting about our basic R. So we have done in class, we have done now the R markdown. And this R markdown essentially is a standalone kind of lecture slides, and that will allow for you to do simple analysis on the birth weight data set. And on this birth weight data set, you will already see some of the first functions. You will learn how to group. You will learn how to show several graphs on one slide. And you also will learn about how to do a t-test. So you basically see a t-test, BWT first, dollars and weight group, weight as a function of group. So in the t-test, you separate your continuous variable on the left-hand side from the right-hand side covariates, risk, quote-unquote, risk factor, predicting variable, with a tilde. And this tilde essentially is central to quite a few other functions as well. So you see it also here with fit.lm. So fit.lm means LM is essentially the linear regression model that you're building. So again, weight is this continuous variable. The tilde is essentially leading towards this mathematical function. And we're getting here at the intercept 1. Remember, we have 0 and 1, where essentially the intercept is basic for those that are not 1, and then plus the group allows them to essentially add to that intercept. So we have data. The data term here indicates from which object to actually pull the data. So we, just as a recap, we have here the birth weight data. So this is 4,390 observations. This is a longitudinal data. And then we have birth weight first. We will only take like first entry. And this is 878 observations. So now the obvious conclusion from that is that there were 878 mothers included that had at least one child. And all of them together with all the children, there's multiple entries, and this is how you also in a quote unquote long format structure your data always, essentially had 4,390 entries. Good, so this is this. Okay, so we talked about this, and we have now, okay, so we have now 2 RMD files that were provided to us from the TAs that have set up this lab, Marcel and Pino. So now we have downloaded this before. We just have to open them now. So we can close now birth weight first. We can close now the lecture file. Always make sure that you save. Whenever you make changes, please save it. Make sure, because RStudio is a good software, but it's also this goes the wrong way. All right. So if we start this now, what do we see? We're running this down now. Again, seeing this computations, the TEX. Make sure to have analyzed, to have installed Just a second. I need to. Seems like I need to provide this from different sources as a PDF file. Let me just grab it from somewhere else. For achieve an ad. Let's see. Little hiccups happen, right? Okay. So the problem is that there's one. That is one. Just a second. Okay. Okay. So there's a cat program which I'm having problems evaluating right now. It's kind of I will provide you the links for this. So the problem is that the links are broken. So just for you to understand what's happening. And I probably should have tested this before going on record. And yes, you're right. So it gives me time to sip on my coffee. Okay. Okay, so now we have this here as a PDF. So this is intro to R. Intro to our slides. Okay, so we have R and the R Studio interface with basic feature of the R language. Tips on getting started. Tips, getting help in troubleshooting. Okay, so R is a programming language, is an environment for statistical computing and data visualization. Base R refers to the standalone suite of prepackaged functions that allows R to function as a language. And essentially what R is, this quote unquote base R is this part here. So if you click here on console, this is base R. All the rest here is basically provided for by RStudio. So extensions of the R language per se are called packages, and packages can be accessed here. On the right side, you can go and install, and you can find here from the repository all packages, like favorite packages that do buy, you can just simply install them. And the package is in essence nothing else but a container function that gives R additional flexibility and capabilities. And packages are not necessarily associated with R, so they're programmed by anybody, and they're programming R. And they will provide packages to the general audience, to the general R user. And this is great because that makes R really as versatile as it is, because essentially what you're looking at is a language that basically allows for you to use functions and state-of-the-art statistical methods to approach your analytic problems. And let's say you have a PhD student from a university anywhere in the world, programs a package for his PhD thesis, and a lot will put that online on GitHub, and you can utilize, and there's quite an altruistic kind of mindset amongst these programmers. You can download these packages and you can use these packages to essentially run it for your purposes. So this is gold, right? So this is a very, very useful approach to statistical analysis as well as research. So you have some RStudio is considered an interactive development environment. It has a 4-pane layout. So it's like these 4 quadrants. So you have on the left upper side, you have the actual script. Here on the left lower side, you have the actual console. On the right upper side, you have your environment. So this basically shows you what data you currently have loaded, or what object you've loaded, because here this regression fit that we did for the birth weight example is also nothing else but an object here. And then we have here on the right lower side, we have the so-called files. So these are files and that are being part of that folder that is currently a working environment. And you have the plots here, you have packages here, you have help and viewer. And all of this can be used and looked at on the right lower quadrant. So R script is general language processable by R, quote unquote code. R scripts have an R file extension. So all slides that you will be, all codes that you will be saving usually come with the extension .r, as opposed to .rmd, which is an R markdown file extension, and essentially is a framework that combines code and prose, and text. So essentially, this allows for you to create PDFs like the one we're looking at right now, which we have generated here with the code. So it's important that you download the latest version. You install R with all the default settings, and you download RStudio from rstudio.com. You can select the R version, but it usually will do it automatically. Tools and global options. You don't restore R data. Never save R data, because the problem is when you save R data, all your data is going to be in there like in a data dump. And this just confuses things. So always make sure you export that data that you want to be saving from the current project you're working on at that stage you're at, and make sure that you have saved or codes that you're working on. Don't use the workspace. So features of the R language is case-sensitive spaces are ignored except the names, which is functions, yes. Vectorized operations. That means everything runs along vectors, and R, for example, will, if you give it a vector, it will go through a vector one by one by one by one. And you will see what that means, because everything becomes a vector. It's like you have a data frame, and you basically addressing a variable in the data frame. It's like it will treat this variable as a vector. So you can literally, you can pull it out and make it an object and make it a vector, a standalone vector, which is much easier than, for example, using SAS or SPSS, which by its own right is kind of, I'm not gonna talk about SAS or SPSS. This was the last time you actually heard me say anything about it. So I'm a very passionate R user, and I don't want to talk about SAS or SPSS. So we have objects. It's very object oriented, meaning that all these objects essentially do have their value and to have their position in the game, and all these objects can be subsetted into further objects, and as such they can be treated independently. Each, for example, we have here this fit.lm object. This fit.lm object you can treat, you can, with ls, for example, you can do ls bwt, gives you all sub-objects in BWT. ls fit.lm gives you now all the sub-objects within your regression fit. And all of this can be accessed. So this makes it very object-centered. You also have help pages. We will get through all of this, and this all will make more sense than it probably does for you right now. But we will work on that. Good. So this is this. Then we have next we have we have the help pages. Whenever you have a question about a function, so if you are interested in what ls actually is, like what is the instructor use now, you go on ls, !ls will give you a list of objects that basically allows for you to review the function you're interested in. Delta is dollar reserved means these are, so when you use, and this is important to understand because you can literally label every object the way you want to label it. But there are some reserved words that essentially you should not be labeling and not be using. And this is essentially the list of reserved words that you will be seeing. Recognizing a function as a name followed by parentheses in help, arguments, function name, argument, on, input, output. You can install packages, browsing nets, general tips for R learning. Yeah, it will be frustrating. You're learning the language, practice it. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's literally, yes, you can make mistakes. I agree there. What's important is make sure that you double check yourself. Nothing is more frustrating than you making a mistake at one point early in your coding, and then finding out about this mistake somewhere down the road. It's essential that you don't trust any piece of code you ran. You're not even, don't trust yourself. That's pretty much what I tell my analysts, like, don't trust yourself. And it's literally like, if you go step by step by step and you make sure that you haven't made a mistake and you have recognized all the mistakes, then it's perfectly fine. The beauty of it is that whenever you made a mistake, it's changeable. You can remedy that mistake without a problem. The point is you need to recognize it and you need to know what's actually wrong. That is really what's important. And that's key. Okay, maintain a clean R global environment. Yes, absolutely agree. And you can always do this by using the command rm list equals ls brackets. What that means is rm is remove. So you can remove, you can specifically remove single objects. So you can remove like BWT first. You can remove one after another. If you say list equals ls, it's like you saying, okay, so remove the list that I'm going to give you. And that list is ls and brackets, which basically ls and parentheses is all objects. So if you do rm list equals ls, you remove everything. And there it is, gone. Good. Save your script rather than your outputs. Yes. Quite central. If you start subsetting data, at some points with large data sets, I recommend that you do save your outputs or your temporary data files, because it becomes kind of hard to retrace step by step without having the actual data files. Also, it's becoming very time intensive because all this code will run for quite a while. So there's some merit to essentially have some temporary data files saved. But in principle, I wholeheartedly agree, save the script and don't focus on the output. What you can do is like results. You basically, you would take results from linear regression models, for example, pack them into PDFs, pack them into tables and export those. Those you will need, because when you write a paper, you will need those table outputs to essentially populate your paper. Then use object names that are descriptive. Yeah, that's easier said than done, but yeah, in principle, very important. Make sure that you understand each object that you have created. Create a list of each object that you have done. You need to understand what each object is. Nothing is more terrible than using the wrong object, putting that into table or in a report, sending this out, then they ask questions, you come up like, no, that's actually the wrong copy pasting. So make sure to support your future self. Make sure that you anticipate errors that you may have made. Improve readability with clean formatting, yes. Make sure clean formatting and comment. Put a lot of comment in. I want to see you comment in your code, so then I will be really. All right, so this is this. Then okay, so now the next one. Now we have S1 intro. So we're knitting this with the table equals file. With the table equals file. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this is not happening. Okay, so we have here absolute path and relative path file choose. Okay, so these are all child. Yeah, this is all. So we don't want to do this. We have worked on this already, right? EWT. EWT equals me. Okay. So again, make sure that you have to. So one of the most important things is like you need to understand that when something is not working, you need to approach it very systematically to figure out what the issue could be in this context. And so here it's the availability of certain of this birth weight file, which I'm not really sure what the issue here is. But it seems to be some hiccup that it has, and I'm not really sure I'm fully understanding what the issue here is, because I'm reading it and not there. And it actually was supposed to read it. So now it reads it because it's now in the same chunk. Oh, okay, good. But now we got it. Okay, but this is HTML. We actually wanted this PDF. Okay, once again, HTML. So please make sure that you have the PDF generating engine stored. I think it's just easier to work in PDFs rather than HTML. Well, you will see what I mean. Okay. Okay, so now we have this. Now let's quickly go through this. And we essentially were doing nothing else but looking at this at these files, right? So we have here installing packages. So this is Markdown generated, right? And so you're basically going here through C. And we have talked about this to some extent, right? It's like C123 is essentially giving you a vector. So this is a vector. And you can pack this in a vector, not a problem. Like, so now it's A. You can create here a vector of, and again, this can become A again. And that's A. So you essentially, you get, you can assign values to specific objects or vectors. And by that, you get this vector going. So if you do this, for example, the file choose command, I don't really like file choose, I rather code things. So this is file choose. File choose is nothing else, but it basically, it allows you to import data files. Data files essentially that you have somewhere saved. Either you code for the path, which is easily done. So if you look here, so I'm on a Mac, which makes it a little bit more challenging. So essentially you go in desktop, you go in class, BIOS620, so that's our class. You click on this file, you can just click on open and it will import it, right? So here's the BWT. What you can also do is you go on the Finder, you go on the file, you press Control, and now you press Option. It will give you copy birth weight CSV as a path name. And this is what they meant to do up here, which I have hashtagged out, because if you overwrite this, this will give you exactly that path to your CSV file. So again, I repeat it, like right click, option, right click, option, gives you copy birthweight.csv as a path name. So you can copy this automatically. But again, it's like, it's not really the most important aspect of things. You need to know how to load files. You need to know how to address a path. You need to know how to get them into your R. This is quite central, and you will see why. So next class, for example, we're going to import things from SAS. So this is going to be quite central knowledge there. So please play around with it. What you can also do here is with head, you get the first 10. With tail, you get the last on the 6, or you can change this to 10. You can get the dimensions of birth weight. which is here 4390 and 5. Then you get names, head, talk about this. Now you take a subset. We have like the order equals 1, so you only take the first one. And you come with library, yeah. Okay, so here it's getting interesting again. So here you have library. So with library, you get a bunch of new aspects. You get a bunch of new comments. So you get with library. Filter, or the problem was filter input 1 order is not found. Ah, okay. Oh, we didn't run through them. Yeah, so you also got to keep in mind that this is a sequential kind of thing, that this needs to follow a certain kind of outline, and we haven't followed that outline yet. So we didn't do names, and by that we basically he didn't know what we were talking about. So now it knows. Okay, order is now, so we have now each of these entries. We only pick the first one. The summary, we get descriptive statistics of things. So we get now all the overviews. With plot, we get a graph. Didn't run this one either. So now we run this one. So again, also what please go through each of these layouts, because what you will see is like there are different ways to approach things, right? And this is actually beautiful, because by that you have different ways, different solutions. And I'm looking forward to all your solutions on the research notes. So then we have here a linear fit, which is here the fit that we did already before. Oh no, we didn't do that. But yeah, so this is basically, this is a fit of things. And this is already where we're at the end of things. Okay. All right. So this is basically, these are things that we did already. Yeah, so here are some things that they're referring to. So when you want to look at one column only within your data set, you essentially take, okay. Oh, Africa. This is what's running the whole thing. Okay. Oh, it should start. But I forget 6. Okay. All right. So this is basically what we're doing here. And if you want to approach BWT first, if you only want to approach one variable in there, you do this that way. So this is the same graph that we have, all right? So if you do BWT first, you get the whole shebang. You get the whole data set, right? So this is all. To have BWT first, you only get the first 6. If you just want the age, you do have BWT first 8. That only gives you the age. Right? So this is how you address only one column in your entire data set. And this is what you would be doing. You can use this knowledge. So you can do this. Like if you do the fit, you can either do this, you do LM weight as a function of age, and here's the tilde again. Remember I mentioned the tilde? Weight as a function of age, data BWT first. You can also do this and not go the data right and express it differently. You can do BWT first and express it the same way. Same thing, right? So it basically runs the same code. It's just an alternative. And this is what I mean, like there are different ways to different means to an end. Okay. I think that was good. I think it was a good timeline. I hope this kind of helps you to kind of get a good head start into R. Please post to the discussion board and let me know if any questions, and I'm happy to answer them. It should be emails if you want to discuss something in person. If you have problems installing R, post to the discussion board, start a thread. Some of your colleagues may help you. I will definitely also chime in as soon as I see it. I try within 24 to 48 hours to be responsive, but I work full time, and so I'll try my other best to be super responsive. I promise you, I'll be on it. Yeah, post your questions. If you have troubles, don't forget you also need to install the LaTeX thingy, and this is mictex for so here's this, getting mictex. Mictex is what you need to install to be able to so mictex.download will allow you to download the version that you need to run Markdown. Make sure you get full version, not just the basic one. What version? Markdown. Make sure to get the full version. All right. I'm sure you can do it. All right, good. Looking forward to continue next week, and wish you a good week. Wish you a lot of fun with R, a good head start with programming, and look forward to hearing from you. All right, thank you.